Hey guys, I'm Felix from Slowboys Car Club, and today we're going to be installing the Bison Gear external MOLLE panels on my INEOS Grenadier. The gear came really nicely packaged all the way from Poland, and to start things off, we're going to unpack everything, lay it down nicely on the floor to see what we're working with, and then we're going to be installing the first side. So let's get going. So as you can see, all the parts come nicely wrapped in their own plastic, so nothing gets scratched on the way. And they have those nice little stickers here that tell you for which side the parts are for. We're going to be installing the left side first, so we start off with all of those parts here. So when starting to unpack, I always start with the piece that includes the installation manual, in this case also your warranty information. And with Bison Gear, you get a really nice parts diagram for each panel. You also have a nice overview panel diagram that includes everything, as well as the necessary tools for this installation. In this case, it's easy. You just need a 10 and 13 millimeter wrench, and then a 3 and 4 millimeter Allen key, or what I'm using is just a hex bolt. So now we can start and unpack all the stuff. To start the installation, the first thing we're going to do is be installing those 3 seat brackets, and they mount just at the factory load bar locations, and they just go over the factory clamping, and you just reuse those old screws. And in order to remove those, you will need an additional Torx 30-bit, and personally I like to start them off by hand, one by one. And when they are loose, I'm a bit lazy, so I'm using my standard drill. The screws are pretty long, and then you can uninstall them one by one. And those screws are all the exact same length and spec, so you cannot mix them up, so don't worry about that. And when you have removed the first 2 screws, just take your C-bracket and put it over the standard mounting. And you need to take the screws and put them through the small holes here. And then you can just mount them in the factory location again. So let's do that. And in this case, I would also suggest to start tightening them down by hand, just so you don't break any threads. And once started, you can tighten them down with your screwdriver. So as you can see now, I have the first few threads, and now I'll just be using my drill to make matters a bit faster. So as you can see, we installed the first C-bracket. The process is the same for the other 2, so just go ahead. One thing I would do is tighten them down by hand. Snug is fine. If you want Torx settings, I'd recommend about 50 Newton meters. At least that's what I found for the factory load bars. After installing the seat brackets, the next steps will all take part on the MOLLE panel itself, and we will start by adding those wind deflectors to the side of the MOLLE panel. For that, we need the smaller of the 2 provided screws, the M5 flange bolt, and the 3 millimeter Allen key or hex bolt. And then we just start by aligning the holes. The wind deflectors have Rivnuts in them, so you don't need a nut or anything. Just start to screw by hand, and after you set the first screw, it's really easy to align and place the other 2 screws in there by hand. and then just gently tighten them down with the 3mm hex bolt, just like so. In the next step, we're going to be installing the large and small panel bracket to the MOLLE panel itself. In this step, it's really helpful to have the panel diagram by your side to know where which screw goes. And the necessary tools are the 4mm Allen key or hex bit and the 10mm wrench, as well as the M6 flange nut and M6 flange bolt. Taking the panel diagram as a help, navigate the first screws through the MOLLE panel, through the bracket, and then just tighten the nut by hand. And once the first screw is in, it's really easy to place the other screws. So now you can lift the panel and then just don't tighten them down yet, but just install all the screws and nuts loosely. For the right side, it's 4 screws and 4 nuts. And for the left side, it's another 2 screws and 2 nuts. And as I said, don't tighten them down, because on the MOLLE panel, you can still slide the brackets left and right, and then you have it easier to adjust for the mount on the car. So now the large panel is already mounted. The smaller panel goes to the 2 most left slots in the MOLLE panel. And also here, we're just going to start the threads, but not tighten them down fully. And just leave a little bit of play so we can still slide the brackets around. Just like so. So in the next step, we're going to be mounting the MOLLE panel to the previously installed C brackets. And as I said before, it's really important you leave a little bit of play in here so you can adjust later. And you also should have the M6 flange bolts, the remaining ones, handy, because then you can just start the first 2 screws, and after that it's a piece of cake to install the MOLLE panel. So for the next step, just place it near the seat bracket, start the first screw, give it some turns by hand, hold the panel, maybe you have a second person to help you, but really it's really simple alone. And then just take the second bolt. I use the most left and right one in order to have 2 really nice mounting points. And once those 2 screws are started, you can see the MOLLE panel is already safely on the car, and we can start by installing the other screws. For the next step, we're going to be installing the L-track bracket into the airline rail of the Grenadier. And it's really important that the MOLLE panel is still completely loosely on the car, because we will do the final adjustment when every screw is on and then start to tighten it down. So in order to install the L-track bracket, first remove the nut and washer and put them aside. And I will show you the process here so you can see it. What I found easiest is to remove the bolt itself and put it through the round opening of the airline rail, and then move it a little bit to the side. And then you use the bracket and just put it over it, and you will really feel it going into the airline rail. And once it cannot move left and right, you know it's in the proper position. So we will do the same underneath the MOLLE panel. Lift it up slightly, place it in a good spot, just as before, and then install the bracket itself. And once you feel the bracket really going into the airline rail, you know the installation was correct. And then you can grab your nut and washer, and then just tighten it down enough so that the MOLLE panel can move, and repeat the process in the front. So as you can see, we just tightened down the whole MOLLE panel. I started by tightening down the 4 screws of the large panel bracket that go into the 2 rear C-clamps, and then the 2 screws of the small panel bracket that goes into the front C-clamp. then by just tightening or holding the nut in the rear, tightening those 6 screws in the top, followed by the 2 30mm nuts in the L-track. And with that, the MOLLE panel is completely secured on the car and it's looking awesome. That's it for today. I hope this video helped you, and I'm happy to see you the next time. Bye guys.